Giants chairman Greg Johnson breaks down the spending plan for the San Francisco Giants. The Giants get 2 Gold Glove winners. And what did we learn from the World Series? That's all coming up on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. My name is Alan Stiles. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics with the eye test, and a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay Area, but I live in Sacramento now, and I also host a show at Sacktown Sports 1140, The Alan Stiles Show, 10 a.m., 2 p.m. Be sure to check that out, as well as emceeing Sacramento Rivercats games. All in all, I'm lucky enough to cover a team I've been a fan of all my life. Today, we are discussing Chairman Greg Johnson's comments to the SF Standard about the Giants' spending plan. The Giants get 2 Gold Glove winners with Patrick Bailey and Logan Webb. Logan Webb's first, by the way. And last but not least, what did we learn from the World Series? Even though the Smurfs, they won, the Dodgers did, and they got it done. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So Greg Johnson had a conversation with John Shea of the SF Standard and broke down the spending plans for the Giants. So I have a bit of a breakdown for you there. It might make you feel better about the Giants, might make you feel worse. And a lot of people aren't completely thrilled with what Greg Johnson had to say. So he had an interview with John Shea, and he did admit that starting pitching is number one on their priority list. However, when he was asked about spending about $100 million specifically on a pitcher, he said, quote, "I say we're going to be very cautious about those kinds of signings as to whether or not the Giants in total would exceed the threshold of 200 in spending. It just depends on what's out there, right? At 200 million. We may be over, we may be under," Johnson said. "We're going to look at each situation and make the decision and see how it fits not only next year, but the longer term plans," close quote. This is what he had to say on payroll strategy. Johnson outlines that the Giants will prefer flexibility on shorter term contracts over committing to huge long-term deals, particularly for pitchers. He says they'll be very cautious about signings that create less flexibility. So I guess we can say this: goodbye to Ranger Suárez, goodbye to Framber Valdez, and possibly Tarek Skubal. Maybe hello Justin Verlander again, and hello Shane Bieber as well. World Series pitcher, didn't get it done, but World Series pitcher. This is what Johnson had to say just in total. We can go up in spending, but I think the risk is having too many people on similar 6-year type deals. That creates less flexibility on the payroll. I think you can always do things on a shorter basis, but you've got to be careful about having too many of your players being late 30s at a high payroll level. I think you have to balance that. Well, based on that balance, they're probably at their limit, because you have Chapman, who's going to go into his late 30s. Adames is going to go into his mid-late 30s. And you have Rafi Devers, who's probably going to go into his 50s. So you have 3 guys right there. And with those 3 guys, that might just be too many and too rich for the Giants' blood as far as adding any other pieces that would be on a huge long-term deal like that. I think you probably should have, and you know, that just goes to a philosophy thing. Clearly, they don't think that the pitchers and pitching, that's something where they need to spend that type of money. Obviously, they're going to spend money. They have spent money, but they don't think that spending that type of cash on pitchers specifically is the best use of their finances. And that's their decision. I mean, I guess you could compare it to some of these other teams and what they've done. I mean, the Dodgers, of course, they go out and they spend on everyone. So maybe the Dodgers aren't the best model, but it's a little surprising that you're not trying to at least lock one big name pitcher down because, not pocket watching, but you got it. We know you have it, right? The Giants, they want to tell us how well they do in attendance every single season. Okay, cool. We know how expensive the crab sandwiches are. We know that the Giants have, they're the top half of the league already in spending, but this is an issue that you've had. Trying to duct tape and kind of paper mache this thing together a bit at one of the most important positions. I'm just saying one. I'm not saying multiple. And I know this precedes Buster Posey and Tony Vitello in this new regime, but watching Kevin Gausman on the Blue Jays made me sick every time he took the bump because he wanted to be in San Francisco. And it's funny how everybody will talk about Farhan in a negative light, and I understand why that tends to come up, but clearly this is something coming from ownership. This is something coming from somebody above Farhan at that time, because Kevin Gausman did want to stay, and he wanted a pretty solid deal, and that's not something that the Giants wanted to do. Well, now Farhan's gone, and they're still telling us, hey, we are not necessarily in the business of signing a pitcher to a crazy long-term deal. And I don't know if that eliminates Hunter Green as well. Some of these guys that they want to settle in here, and there are a lot of teams that are willing to pay. I understand that it is a risk, but is it any more of a risk than Matt Chapman being signed until he's 37 with a no trade clause? I mean, at least at their height what you're going to get from them. There's obviously always injury concerns, but that's with anyone. So I was a little bit surprised. Maybe he's holding, the cards close to the vest. Maybe they don't want to go out there and say everything right now. That could be possible too. He had a couple other notes just outside of the spending specifically. He signals that the organization has not seen enough player development progression in recent seasons, and that changing the culture is a key ingredient. Again, another reason they probably went in the direction of Tony Vitello. He describes the hire of Tony Vitello as a pivotal move, stating that the front office feels, quote, like we could be an improved organization with this kind of leaders. So those were some of the most important notes that he had to say to John Shea and the SF Standard. Of course, be sure to check out that article and tell me if there's anything I missed. But yeah, a little bit surprising. Obviously, they don't want to spend everywhere, but I thought, hey, we are spending big money on one pitcher, and then we'll see what happens for the second baseman as well as the right field conversation. So that's just where they're at right now. On the other side, let's discuss two guys that are already on the squad and balling out while on the squad. One starting pitcher, Logan Webb, with his first Gold Glove, and Patrick Bailey, who's becoming a staple in that regard. More Locked On Giants coming up. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next point to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making the late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I have to tell you about my favorite jeans. My Doer jeans. Seriously, they've changed my life. I'm wearing my performance denim slim straight, and I cannot get over how comfortable these jeans are. I've been reaching for my Doers for everything, running errands, grabbing dinner with friends, even heading to the ballpark because they look great and feel even better. Here's the thing. Doer jeans have 5 times the stretch of traditional denim, so you can actually move in them. They're also antibacterial, which means they stay fresh longer. Wear more, wash less, and they're made with Cool Max technology that helps regulate body temperature and wick moisture, so you stay cool and comfortable as the day changes. Honestly, They feel as stretchy as my favorite joggers, but look like I'm dressed to go out on the town. Doer is all about combining classic jeanswear style with athletic level comfort and performance. It's the best of both worlds. They actually pioneered the original performance denim, blending technical innovation with everyday clothing that looks sharp and feels incredible. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without sacrificing style. Once you try them, they'll be your go-to pair. Trust me. And if you're in San Francisco, check out Doer's store at 567 Hayes Street. Pick up a pair for yourself or grab one as an amazing holiday gift. Mention my promo code LOCKEDONSF in store to get 15% off your first order, or shop online at shopdoer.com/LockedOnSF for that same 15% off. That's shopdoer.com/LockedOnSF. Your new favorite jeans are waiting. In a season where offense often dominates the headlines, the Giants made a major statement on the other end of the field. Logan, Webb, and Patrick Bailey were awarded Rawlings Gold Gloves in 2025. This is Webb's first career Gold Glove as a pitcher in the National League, while Bailey secured his second straight as a catcher. And shout out to Patrick Bailey. We know some of the struggles that he's had offensively, but this is where his bread is buttered. You know what I mean? And everybody want to talk about ABS and how things are going to change. While the current system is still in place, Patrick Bailey has been incredibly valuable to the San Francisco Giants, and I just wanted to give him some kudos there. He is the first catcher in franchise history with multiple Gold Gloves, which feels crazy, to be completely honest with you, but it's true. It's very rare, and why this is a big deal is because it's very rare for a pitcher-catcher battery to both win Gold Gloves in the same season. Webb and Bailey became the first such battery since Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina in 2013. That's a long time ago, so good for them. Over 10 years ago, it's the last time that happened. Webb's award reflects a major improvement after being among Major League Baseball's weaker pitchers at holding runners in 2024. He committed only one error in 2025, led NL pitchers in defensive runs saved, and drastically lowered stolen base attempts against him. These are the things that don't really show up when you're watching day to day. We're going to sit here. We're going to talk about, did Logan Webb have it against the Smurfs, against the Dodgers when he needed it most? Did he have it to kick off a series as that starting guy? But there's a lot more that goes into it than his ridiculous repertoire of pitches. Bailey's win further cements his reputation as one of the game's elite defensive catchers. His framing, block work, and caught stealing rates stacked up among the best in the league. So what does this mean for the Giants? How should the Giants obviously be excited about this, but how should they accept what Logan Webb and what Patrick Bailey were able to do, and how do they build on that as it pertains to the culture that they're trying to create, specifically with Tony Vitello now at the helm? It starts to align with the team's identity. The front office under Buster Posey has continued, stop me if you've heard this before, continued to emphasize pitching and defense at its core. These awards are proof points that the organization is moving in that direction. It builds that momentum. Defensive recognition rarely stands alone. It often correlates with more wins, improved pitching staff morale, and better team performance in tight games. All right. While the awards are a positive sign, they also raise expectations. Webb and Bailey must maintain or build on this level. The rest of the roster and staff will be judged on supporting their elite defense. So these are building blocks. These are all building blocks. And if you're Patrick Bailey, this is something that you know he needed, right? You know that he felt like this is something where I can continue to show my value. And you know what? As much as everybody wants to talk about how Patrick Bailey can't hit, and I see you in the comments, and I do it myself, don't get me wrong. Let us not forget that in a world, and I get it, he was always a defensive guy coming up, but in a world where we're talking about developing young talent and making sure that they're ready for the big show, the Giants developed the best catcher in baseball. The best catcher in baseball. The Giants developed that. Defensively, the best catcher in baseball. So these last couple years here, maybe even the last decade, if I want to be frank, they haven't had a lot to cheer about from a development perspective with position players. And yes, the saviors that we've talked about in the past never came to be, but at least they got something with Patrick Bailey. Some teams don't have anything. Some teams buy everything, like we're about to talk about the Dodgers. But some teams, they don't have that. And for the Giants to have that, I think it does say a lot about what they're trying to do, what they're trying to build, and how this thing can continue to grow and continue to improve. So as much as we always get on the Giants for Joey Bart didn't work out and Marco Luciano and Luis Matos, they have it. I would count it this, and this is what we do when it comes to the draft too. I count things as hits and misses, right? And I count Patrick Bailey 1,000% as a hit. When you draft, and I know recently the draft is the draft is only down to 20 rounds now, but when it was 40 rounds and things like that, you're looking for hits in any sport. Football is only 7, basketball is only 2. You have hits and you have misses, right? And the Giants have had some misses, don't get me wrong, but Patrick Bailey is 100% without a shadow of a doubt a hit. Is he perfect? No, but he has shown flashes offensively. And defensively, we know he's a stud. The rest of your lineup, that is where you need the hitting to come in, right? When you're paying Rafi Devers and you're paying Willie Dunn, you're paying certain guys to do certain things, and you're paying them a lot of money. And the Jung Hoo Lees, guys like that. So a shout out to Patrick Bailey. Huge shout out to Logan Webb doing something that we haven't seen both a battery do in over a decade. And hopefully they can continue to build from here. One more segment with you when we return. What did we learn from the World Series? Oh, man, oh, man. More Locked On Giants coming up. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping up at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. And I love zone deals. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. So what did we learn from the World Series? All right, well, I'll start here, and I got to troll a little bit because it's crazy. So I obviously get notifications when I go to YouTube, specifically, obviously the podcast, everybody listening, shout out to you there. But comment-wise, right, it's either on social media or on YouTube. So over the weekend, I'm just, enjoying my time, and the World Series ends, and I wake up the next day and I go to check YouTube just to see how everything's going, starting to get ready for the week, and I see a couple notifications. Now, that's not incredibly random, because, people are watching these shows at any point in time of the day. So I see the notifications, I think nothing of it. Once I click the notifications, I see that it is a Dodger fan who is spending their day, right, spent their Sunday finding Giants shows and podcasts to comment in, and is saying the Dodgers have done something the Giants never did. They defended their title, all this stuff. And honestly, I feel sad for you. Whoever you are, I'm not going to call you out. You can find them in the comments, by the way. I think it was the most recent. It was 2. He did it on 2 separate, or they did it on 2 separate videos, okay? And that's how you know, as the kids say, the Giants are living rent-free. You just won the World Series. You should be celebrating with all your other Dodger fans that have probably never been to Los Angeles before, wherever you are. You might be in Milwaukee. I don't know where you are. But to spend your Sunday, instead of celebrating your World Series win, commenting on Giants shows, it's just incredibly sad. It's incredibly sad. I remember when the Giants won, and, I was on Caltrain celebrating with my friends, and it was the best time ever. The last thing I was thinking about doing is trolling Dodger fans. Well, because at that time, half of the Dodger fans didn't exist. But the last thing I would have thought about at that time is trolling Dodger fans. So very sad stuff from Dodger fans. Are we surprised? No. And I was going to say, hey, all I got to say is congrats. Good for you. They got it done. The other thing that we learned that Dodger fans are incredibly sad, which I think we kind of already knew, at least I did. The other thing that we learned is that it was an incredible performance from World Series MVP Yamamoto, but he is still not better than one Madison Bumgarner. Here are the comparisons. Madison Bumgarner, 2-0, 21 innings pitched, a .43 ERA, 17 strikeouts. Yamamoto, he did go 3-0, but only pitched 17.2 innings with a 1.02 ERA and 15 strikeouts. So he did get one more win, but he pitched less innings. He had a higher ERA, and he struck out less batters. So that's it. That's it. That's the end of the story there. A lot of people, it's easy to do, and it was an incredible performance. I'm not even trolling right now, but we can't be prisoner of the moment. It's still Madison Bumgarner. Am I objective? No, but it's still Madison Bumgarner. So that's the other thing that we learned. Madison Bumgarner is still a legend. Yamamoto is a legend in his own right, but he is not Madison Bumgarner. Okay. Let's get to some of the actual things that we learned. Just want to have some fun here. No case of the Mondays on this side. To me, the amount of pitching is not as important as the quality of pitching. Going back to Yamamoto, they just kept hitting the same buttons, right? When it got later into the series, it was Yamamoto, it was Glasnow, it was Snell, it was the guys, and not even just in starting capacities, in any capacity. It was Sasaki, any capacity. So to me, you need to have guys throughout the season. Obviously, it's a very, very long season. But on top of that, you also need guys that without a shadow of a doubt can get it done and are just simply unhittable. And I know that's easier said than done, but my point is, going back to the beginning of the show, how Greg Johnson doesn't want to, or not Greg Johnson, but the Giants as a whole might not want to pay these premiums for a pitcher. You just have to be very careful, because bringing in, and this is a guy who just, who just lost the World Series, but he did his thing. Hey, let's bring in Shane Bieber as a closer or something like that. Is that the same as, hey, Framber Valdez is on short rest, we can put him back in. Tarek Skubal is on short rest, we can put him back in. Now, I know I'm getting ahead of myself talking about the World Series, but that's how you have to think. So good luck to the Giants in going about it the way they plan on going about it. That's the first thing I learned. I mean, just having the premium pitching that you can use in a pinch when everything is on the line, that matters. And we saw it prior to the World Series as well. It's not just in the World Series. It's once you get to the playoffs. It is all hands on deck. A defense, going back to the Gold Gloves, defense is as important as it's ever been. Dodgers could have made just one mistake and they lose the World Series. Tommy Edman, those plays that he made behind first base to get that runner out at third, then to a lesser degree, a perfect throw to get and I think that was in the 18-inning game, to get the runner at home. Tommy Edman is probably, to me, the unsung hero of this World Series run for the Dodgers. Everything that he did, it was just perfect. The Dodgers just didn't make mistakes defensively. They didn't. And I know Mookie couldn't hit, but defensively, he was a complete stud. So defense, incredibly important, because the Dodgers, for all the money that they spent on that lineup, they couldn't hit, but they pitched and played defense. That's literally what Buster Posey is trying to tell us. Now, they did have timely hitting with the home runs and things like that, but dare I say, that's similar to what the Giants did back in the day. The Giants didn't have that payroll, and the Dodgers weren't supposed to be unable to hit like that, but they could power through because they had the pitching and they had the defense. Base running. I'm talking to you, Elliot Ramos. I'm kidding, but not really. I'm talking to you, San Francisco Giants, right? A couple guys have had some. Tyler Fitzgerald. There have been a couple guys with some blunders, not just Elliot Ramos. But base running, man. Base running. For the Blue Jays, right? To bring in a pinch runner, you don't get enough of a lead at third. You end up being out by centimeters, millimeters. The Blue Jays, multiple times, they thought that there were called balls. They're just walking. And George Springer, who has been around forever, he's 36 years old, a vet, a champion, just be hanging out. Just make sure the ball is called. Just make sure the ball is called. They did it twice in one series. I don't know how that happens. The base running blunders were atrocious for the Blue Jays. That stuff, the fundamentals matter. The fundamentals matter. The Dodgers couldn't hit, but they did not make mistakes. They did everything else correctly. The long ball was extremely prevalent, more so late in games. You're going to need it late in games. And I've always been against the three true outcome thing, just because, back in my day, batting average mattered. But I will say this, when it comes to the three true outcomes, we knew in that, because we literally saw it, right? The Blue Jays kept getting guys on base, but unable to score, because it's really hard with premium pitching to manufacture runs. I would say this, once it gets to the playoffs, there are teams that we've seen it before. Hey, just get on base, knock, things like that. When you're facing premium pitching at that level, you got to guess. You have to guess. And that's what Freddie Freeman did. He got one. He didn't miss it. Multiple times, this is what these guys did. Will Smith in the last game got one, didn't miss it. Rojas got one, didn't miss it. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays, as much as I love that type of ball, and that ball has won World Series before, but that wins World Series when you have a team that makes a mistake. And the Dodgers did not make a mistake. So it's funny. It's not that the home run is more important than it was prior to the World Series. I think it just comes back to the Dodgers defense. All of the hitting that the Blue Jays did, they did enough to manufacture runs in that 18-inning game and in Game 7. But the Dodgers just never folded. Not even folded. They just didn't make a blunder or a mistake. So I don't even know if this is a good example of whether the home runs matter. In this situation, the home runs matter if you're facing a team that just doesn't make mistakes defensively, because you can't defend a home run. But I still want to say in my heart of hearts that the base knocks, they are very important in the playoffs. The Dodgers just debunked it because they refused. I mean, a throw that's just slightly off. And we're not talking about a disgusting parade in Los Angeles. Good luck. I hope you took off work for the next 2 days, by the way. Well, they don't live in LA, most Dodger fans, so I don't know where they're going to fly in from. But we're talking about a parade in Toronto. We are, if they make one mistake, and they didn't. So as much as I like to have fun at the expense of the Dodgers, they did their thing. I can admit that. And what we've learned is that you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to do things perfectly more often than not once you get to that level. And whether or not I feel like the Giants are far away from that, I'll say this. I felt better before I heard Greg Johnson's comments. I felt better because I felt like if you do go get a complete stud pitcher and then you go get a Shane Bieber or a Justin Verlander, then I felt like the Giants could compete, and they got to do something. That's the other thing. The bottom of the Dodgers, it also made me feel like you could spend that money and not necessarily have to use it on a right fielder and second baseman. I mean, you look at the bottom of that lineup, and I know Rojas had that crazy home run. It's just ridiculous stuff. But, I mean, Kike, Tommy Edman, they had their moments, but these aren't moments that I don't think that Casey Schmidt could have at some point. I know Kike's been doing it forever, but Casey Schmidt, because think about the quote-unquote holes. I mean, we're talking about 3 in right field and second base, and some people, we would say Patrick Bailey, catcher as well. That's 3. If Casey Schmidt kind of takes a turn a little bit and you find something in right field, or you just you don't get a Kyle Tucker, but you go get somebody that has been around the block and we know can hit the baseball, I think that the Dodgers proved that that's enough hitting. The names obviously don't prove that because the names are ridiculous, but Mookie was getting paid a lot of money to strike out and do absolutely nothing. So I think after watching the World Series, I think Greg Johnson and the Giants, if they're planning on, I don't know if they're just not planning on spending that big money at all, but they definitely should spend it on a pitcher, if that's the case, more so than a Kyle Tucker. I'm out. After watching the World Series, I am out on Kyle Tucker. I am out on a big money position player that you're going to have until, like they said, they're late 30s. I'm out on that. But I'm not out on getting a pitcher and solidifying that starting rotation. So we'll see what happens there. We will be back tomorrow. Thank you for listening to Locked On Giants. Be sure to follow me on social media at _Styles Files, Styles with an I. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Really appreciate what everyone has been doing for us. People have been reaching out to me on Instagram, social media. I love it. I love it. I love it. Please keep it going. Until then, we will talk to you tomorrow. Peace.